Well, the question on the floor today is, will David Avanesyan take a dive? David Avanesyan, he will be fighting Terence Crawford. Now, before I answer that question, let me first say, what is a dive? What is a dive? Well, a dive is when an athlete or a competitor loses a competition intentionally for personal gain. That's what a dive is. In fact, we've heard a professional fighter testify before the Senate at a congressional hearing in 1960, talk about him as an athlete taking a dive. Yup, you guessed it. I'm talking about Jake LaMotta. And Jake LaMotta testified that he was offered $100,000 way before he even put on a pair of gloves to fight Billy Fox. Way before he even stepped in the ring, before he was to fight Billy Fox. But don't take my word for it. Roll the tape.
I received an offer of $100,000 to lose to Billy Fox, which I refused. I said I was only interested in a championship fight. And he said it could be arranged. A championship fight might be arranged. Well, that's all I heard for about a couple of weeks. And while I'm training, I hurt myself, and I went to a doctor, and the doctor examined me, took x-rays, and found out I had a ruptured spleen. And he said I couldn't possibly fight. But I thought I could. But towards the end, when I realized that I couldn't possibly win, I said I would lose to Billy Fox if I was guaranteed a championship fight.
Now, will you state what happened in the ring in your bout with Billy Fox?
I had no strength in my arms to really concentrate a hard punch, because if I did, it would hurt my side. So I just stood there helpless while he threw a number of punches at me, and the referee stopped the fight.
Well, you've heard what Jake LaMotta said. He was offered the $100,000. But instead of him accepting the $100,000 offer, he refused it because he realized that maintaining, or even obtaining rather, the middleweight championship of the world was more valuable than a one-time payment of $100,000. So by him refusing the $100,000 offer, he counter-offered by asking the mob to provide him with the opportunity to fulfill his quest and journey for the last 5 years to receive a title shot. And because he threw the fight, he took a dive against Billy Fox, they obliged him, and then he was awarded the opportunity to basically receive and obtain a world title shot, which he won that world title. Now, why is this question of will David Avanesyan take a dive on the table? Well, because if you look at all of the facts regarding David Avanesyan fighting Terence Crawford and the process that it took for him to get the fight with Terence Crawford, these facts makes it look like a setup. These facts makes it appear that David Avanesyan is setting this whole scene up for Terence Crawford to win so that David Avanesyan can take a dive. Now let's look at the 6 facts surrounding the process that led up to David Avanesyan fighting for a world title against Terence Crawford. Fact number 1. This fight is taking place in the United States of America, Terence Crawford's home country. Fact number 2, Terence Crawford's hometown in the city and state of Omaha, Nebraska. Also, fact number 3, Avanesyan is the underdog. Fact number 4, Avanesyan was scheduled to fight on November the 19th in another country on a card that was already approved by the Commission and Athletic Board against another opponent. And in fact, there were other fights on that card that was scheduled to take place as well. Well, we already know that that card was immediately dissipated because David Avanesyan was now scheduled to fight in America just like that. Fact number 5. Negotiations only took 48 hours, according to David Avanesyan's manager, Neil Marsh. And fact number 6. David Avanesyan got paid majority of his money up front, according to Bob Arum's conversation with Queensberry Promotions founder and CEO Frank Warren a few weeks ago. Well, most fighters don't get a whole bunch of money up front. You know how Jake LaMotta was offered a whole bunch of money up front in 1947 in his fight that he was offered with Billy Fox. So it looks suspicious. These 6 facts alone makes it look suspicious that David Avanesyan is going to take a dive. So the question on the table again is, will David Avanesyan take a dive? My answer to that question is yes. David Avanesyan will take a dive. But not the dive that you think that I'm talking about. Not the dive that Jake LaMotta took and some other fighters as well. I'm talking about the fact that David Avanesyan will take a dive on his behind. He will take a dive on his back pocket. He will take a dive on the seat of his pants. Well, boxing shorts. Because I believe that Terence Crawford will basically knock David Avanesyan out in a TKO in probably round 7. Somewhere around there. Well, I answered the question. But wait a minute. On a serious note, we hope that David Avanesyan don't take a dive. We hope that's not the case. Even though it looks suspicious, boxing fans all across this country, we hope that's not the case, that David Avanesyan will take a dive.